Hi, good evening. I'm Patricia Van Skyke, and I'm director of the Lloyd Library. And I'd like to welcome you to tonight's program, a tour of Africa with Chef Gabi Odebode. I see a lot of new faces here, as that really pleases me, and I of course see some very familiar faces as well. And to all of you, welcome. If this is your first time to the Lloyd Library, we date back to the 1870s, our library, and our books go back to the 1400s. So we've been here, physically here on this block for a long time, and our books for even longer than that. Our library is and has always been free and open to the public, so please feel free to return, use our collections, visit our exhibitions, and attend other programs, and bring friends too. We are officially halfway through our program series that aligns with our current exhibition, The Enduring Impact of the African Plant Diaspora, and that exhibit runs through July 25th of this year. Tonight's program will take us on a food tour of the diverse regions of Africa through the lenses of Africa's culinary traditions. I hope you had a chance to sample both the exhibition and the food in our gallery. And if you happened to attend the opening reception for the exhibition, you had an additional opportunity to taste Chef Gabi's amazing flavors from Africa. Chef Odebode's presentation will provide us with background information, food stories, and illustrate the global influence of African ingredients and cooking techniques. In doing so, it will bring additional meaning to African cuisine, as well as a deeper understanding of the African plant diaspora. Chef Gabi Odebode was born in Ghana and discovered her passion for cooking at an early age. In fact, she began learning to cook prior to immigrating to the U.S. at age 9. It reminds me of a friend and colleague that I had who was an amazing cook. And one day I asked her, "How soon did you start cooking?" And she said, "As soon as I could pull the chair up to the stove." Yeah. It sounds like you. Yeah. That's probably true as well. Chef Gabi has been a driving force in bringing West African cuisine to the mainstream food scene. She is founder of Afromeals. Her business, by the way, turns 5 years old this year, and, which operates out. Yay! Which operates out of Finley Kitchen. Chef Gabi caters and offers cooking classes. She also works with the Food Network, where you can find about 30 of her recipes on their website. So it was my deep pleasure to welcome Chef Gabi Odebode.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Once again, I am Chef Gabi Odebode. It's so strange for me to talk and not having to cook. I'm used to during the cooking class, I'm cutting up some stuff, I'm talking about it, I'm explaining it, but I'm gonna do my best to talk about touring the African continent through food. So a tour of Africa is actually one of our cooking classes. This is what started the business, because in 2020, I guess then it was 2021, you still had people who thought Africa is like a country, right? So they will ask you do you know my friend in Ethiopia? And I'm like, I'm from Ghana. I don't even know your friend from Ethiopia. Even if you had a friend in Ghana, I would not still know them, because it's a country is huge, and we have different tribes and cultures and foods and all of that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And some of the food that you got to try, sample, is also in the presentation. I'll go over more of it when we get to that, okay? So the title, again, is Tour of Africa, Touring the African Continent Through Food. So this is a map of the West African countries, and I am originally from West Africa, Ghana, so I wanted to start that off first. All of the different countries that you see, we have, if you were to say, would I experience certain food from Nigeria or Senegal or Liberia or Togo, which is where my grandmother used to go and trade, I would say yes, because regionally the foods are very, very similar, but not like, you know, across in the south, I mean, sorry, below in the south and north and across from the east where we're very different. So yes, Africa is a continent with 54 countries, but we're very, very different. If you jump from one region to another region, our food is different, our clothes are different, our languages are different, okay? So those are some of the countries. So West African food, the flavor is bold, flavorful, and then is rooted in tradition. I know later on I will talk more about like South African food, North African food, and you'll see more of like maybe Indian influences and European influences, but it seemed like in West Africa we're able to keep more of our traditional food with just a little changes here and there, okay? So we know that we have rich stews, smoky flavors. Most of the time in Ghana growing up, we cooked on something called charcoal, okay? I know you all cook charcoal, you all cook on charcoal, but we had like something called a coal pot, okay? It was silver, was made with metal, and we put coals in there, and then we cooked everything on that coal pot. So I didn't really know about cooking on the stove and all of that until I immigrated to Ghana. So some of our foods had that smoky flavor because as the food is cooking on the coal pot, it's entering the food. So that's why in Nigeria, we'll talk about it, they have something called smoky jollof, okay? We have spicy seasonings, and also we use a lot of local staples like rice, cassava, yam, plantains, beans, and leafy greens. You will see that most of our food is more carb-based. Why is that? Because in specifically in Ghana, once you eat a big bowl of rice, and I say a big bowl of rice because that's what you will normally eat. We started learning about portion control in America and learning that you can't eat the same big bowl of rice and then just sit down in winter. In Ghana, right after you eat the big bowl of rice, you're walking to school, you're walking to work. I used to walk with my aunts to school, right, and it's like 2 miles, not like from here to here. It's like so by the time you get to school, you're hungry looking for your next meal. So most of our food is more carb-based. So you have the yams, you have the cassava, you have the rice, you have the plantain, beans, and you will see that when I came to America, and then like I go to a restaurant, and they call the carbs a side, while the meat is the main. And I'm like, no, like I thought I was in like what is it? Like some type of alternate world. And I'm like, no, the rice, bring more rice. And like, I don't really care about the meat. And that's how our culture is, where the sides are actually the soups and the stews and the meats and the other veggies. And the main is the yam, is the fufu, is the rice. And we'll talk more about that. Okay, so we're spice forward. We use, well, I can say that like we like spicy food, most of us, but not all of us, okay? So we use a lot of Scotch bonnet. We use a lot of habanero. I prefer to use habanero because it brings heat and flavor. Scotch bonnet is just heat, okay? But I remember I was at a farmer's market in Maryland. I'm actually from Maryland. I moved to Ohio 2018. And I was in a farmer's market. And then this auntie, we call every elderly woman auntie, she came like, no, don't buy that one, don't buy that one, buy this one, buy this one. And me and my friend was like, okay, because sometimes it can be intrusive even when trying to help you, okay? So I bought it, and then that was like life-changing. And this brings me to the point that like, I think Patricia, right? She mentioned that I started learning how to cook at 9 because when you're growing up, and then you see your aunt and your mom and your grandmother in the kitchen, you better not be sitting somewhere watching TV or playing sports or whatever. You're in the kitchen with them. So those aunties, sometimes they feel like it's their responsibility to guide you in flavors and cooking techniques and how things are supposed to look. Slow cooked stews and soup, tomato-based. Most of our foods are slow cooked meals. Our soups is filled with a lot of rich flavors, a lot of bold flavors, because it takes time. And that's why, like, if you're going to go to somebody who is going to cook for you from the African background, like, make sure you take a snack, okay? Because we take our time to cook. The ingredients, the cooking methods, the slow cooking. For instance, jollof rice takes a long time to cook. You have to cook the stew. First of all, you have to blend the pepper, the onion, the garlic, all of that. And then you have to cook the stew, add in your curries and the different flavors to create that beautiful stew. It takes at least like 20 minutes to do that, okay? Most of you are done cooking in 20 minutes, but that's just the start. And then you toss in the rice, then you add the broth, and then you cover it, and then it cooks under very low heat, and the flavor is building up. So that's why jollof rice is a big popular dish in the West African area, and I'll talk more about that as well. So tomato-based stew is mostly what we see as a foundational part of our cooking. You see it in our stews, our soups. You see it in our rice dishes, our beans. We have bean stew actually in Ghana called red that you can find on the Food Network actually, and that's when you cook black-eyed pea beans in a stew. And then Nigerians, they call it jollof beans. It's the same thing. I mentioned this before, we are grain-centered. We pair almost every stew and soup with some type of rice dish or fufu. And fufu, I'll talk about it. Let me not jump the gun. I'm so excited. Okay. I love food, so I'm so excited to talk about it. Layered flavors. Many meals starts with an aromatic base of blended onions, just like I just mentioned, and we call it the Trinity. And some people, one of my friends call it the Holy Trinity, okay? It's so good that like it's sacred, okay? So we're gonna move on to the next. So these are some of the popular dishes. Jollof rice. It says spicy tomato rice, but it doesn't have to be. You can control the spice, because another assumption that people tend to make is that everyone in Africa or the western part of Africa likes spicy food. I happen to marry somebody that enjoys spicy food, so I was like, oh, thank God, you know, because I like spicy food. But then we had one of our children, two of them actually, they can't stand spicy food, so that was a bummer. So I have to cook without the Scotch bonnet and then make a little Scotch bonnet pepper on the side for my husband and I and my daughter, and then we just add it after. So so we have fried rice, which is what you all sampled today. So depending on the different countries, the fried rice is made similar, right, with just a few differences. In Nigeria, they like to use chicken liver. Don't say, it actually tastes good, okay? One thing about us too is that, like I think I mentioned to one person who came very early, we use every part of the animal. We use every part of an ingredient. Like the taro leaf, on that art right there by Mark, they have the root vegetable, which is kind of like a potato, but the leaf is what we call in Ghana kontomire. Kontomire is our spinach. Kontomire is our spinach, okay? That's what we use to make spinach stews and all of that. So we use the leaf and the actual root vegetable. I'm gonna go back to jollof rice. Again, it's blended tomatoes with onions and not garlic, not so much garlic, but I like to add garlic because, you know, it adds more flavor. And sometimes some people add ginger. The difference between jollof rice in Senegal and Nigeria and Ghana is because in Senegal, they cook their jollof rice with other vegetables, okay? We don't do that in Ghana. In Nigeria, the blended puree, tomato puree, they add peppers to it. So they have like a sweeter note coming from the peppers. But in Ghana, we're strictly tomatoes. But in my house, I do both, okay? I do the bell peppers and the tomatoes. And the only thing I stick to is the jasmine rice, where the rice, also depending on which country you're from, differ. We use jasmine rice as Ghanaians, and then Nigerian rice, they use enriched long grain. It's like some of my friends call it the bullet rice. It's very thick, so you have to cook it longer. I will stay on jollof rice a little bit more because it's what the whole Western African country is known for. At least that is the one dish that we all eat, and there's a war between Ghanaians and Nigerians about this rice. And that's why, like, when everybody find out that I'm Ghanaian, my husband is Nigerian, they're like, whose jollof is better? And I'm like, no, you're not gonna get me, okay? So, and funny enough, as much as there is that war, whose jollof is better between Ghana and Nigeria, none of us created it. Jollof rice was actually created by the Senegambia region. And it was from the Jollof or the Wolof tribe. They created it, and the other West African countries named the Jollof rice after that tribe. But in Senegal, they actually call it teboujon. They don't call it jollof rice, okay? And then Nigerian and Ghanaians have the audacity to tell them that they're not making it right, okay? Can you imagine? But a rice being good or not, it's not about the region. I've had great Senegalese jollof, Ghanaian jollof, Nigerian jollof, and I've also have bad ones. It depends on the cook. Like just every food, it depends on the cook. It doesn't depend on the region, okay? Awesome. So now egusi soup is melon-based soup. It looks like a stew. So if you're like in America or an American was just like, this looks more like a stew. I know that, but they call it soup. So we respect the culture and we call it soup too, okay? And some of them know that. So sometimes I will call it egusi stew, and I have to correct myself that if I'm with the Nigerian community, I call it a soup instead of a stew, whereas in Ghana, we call it a stew because it's thicker and it's not watery like soup and stuff like that. So it's basically melon seed that they blend it, so it becomes very, very pasty, and they cook it in the same trinity, the tomato or tomato and or bell pepper and onions, and they cook it in that stew, and it has like a reddish, whitish color with some greens, and then the greens happens to be spinach. Groundnut soup is known in Ghana, Nigeria, in different parts of the countries, they make their own version. So you can go to Ghana and it will taste more different because maybe we put more ginger than maybe people in Nigeria or Senegal or Liberia. So it differs, but it all tastes great. Wache, that's one of my favorite food. It's rice and bean dish. Is black-eyed pea dish, black-eyed pea beans, which is also found on that map as well. And then the sorghum, which is also on that map. I was so excited to see it because most of the vegetables that we grow is on that map. So I was very excited to see it. So we get the sorghum leaf and then we add it to the rice and the beans, and it gives it a purple color, which I'm going to show. And then the rest, fufu, basically most people tend to think it's dough. Why are you eating dough and soup? It's not dough. It's basically cassava and or plantain that you cook and then you pound together to get that dough-like consistency. And you always pair it with the soup. So it doesn't have flavor because the flavor is actually supposed to come with the soup or the stew that you eat it with. So these are some of the foods. That's the fried rice up to my left. That's the fufu and the egusi soup. This is one of my kids' favorite. That's the jollof rice, plantain, and chicken. So you see the carbs that I'm talking about here. And then this is, it's called moi moi. It's from Nigeria. When I first encountered it, I was kind of scared of it until I tasted it, but it was pretty good. It's basically black-eyed pea beans that you cook with bell peppers, onions, garlic. You grind it, and then you steam it, okay? And then the one on the leaf, that is a banana leaf. That's how we serve wache. Wache is one of my favorite things. I just explained it. You serve it on a banana leaf, and the banana leaf adds its own flavor also to the food. And then that is amutu and groundnut soup. And amutu is basically rice ball. You cook rice, make it very like mushy, and then like you form it together, and it also looks like a dough. And then you eat it with peanut soup. And then this one is fufu and groundnut soup as well. And what is in there is asanka. And that's actually my picture. Is asanka, and that's a clay pot that we used to blend and cook. We used to blend and eat out of. Yes.
Question, fufu. Is that cassava flour or is that?
This one in Nigeria, they do more pounded yam, which is a yam. Oh, okay, and that's like the long tuber, because I know that here sometimes you guys call potato yam.
Okay,
so
fufu in East Africa is probably ugali?
Yes, which that is corn. That's maize. That's not.
Millet.
Yes, maize or millet, and it's not yam or cassava. So that's how we differ. And we have something also in Ghana called benkun. That's also ugali. It's just ours is fermented, whereas ugali is not fermented corn. Any other questions? Awesome, I'll move on. I'm going to skip through because I'm talking too much. So spices we use, chilies, Scotch bonnet peppers. We discussed that, dried chili flakes. We use ginger a lot, especially in Ghana, If I come to your house and I don't see ginger and you're Ghanaian, I'll ask you, are you even Ghanaian? So ginger is a big thing. Garlic, onions, tomato-based peppers, and all of that. So that's some of the spices. These are grains of psyllium. These are the traditional spices that like most people don't really know. Grains of psyllium in Ghana, we call it wentia. In Nigeria, they call it uda pot. And it's kind of like, I would say if I was to compare, it's kind of like a clove, our own like clove, okay? And then calabash nutmeg is similar to nutmeg, but it's, like they said, pungent, and we use it more for like a savory foods instead of like nutmeg, where it's used towards like pastries and other stuff. Alligator peppers, atare, that's in Nigeria. It's spicy and aromatic. They use it in something called pepper soup. I see it a lot in their pepper soup, which is like a light soup made with like beef broth or chicken broth. Dawa dawa, dawa dawa is where we get our umami flavor from, but it smells really badly, okay? So think about like your favorite like stinky cheese. That's really good, right? That's kind of like that, locust beans. So sometimes when we use it in our house, when we have guests coming, we know that not to warm it or cook it around that time, because like it takes over the whole house because it's fermented. But we love it because it adds so much of the traditional flavors to our food. Okay, other spices. We use a lot of curry powder, thyme, bay leaf, nutmegs, cloves. And then I think the only thing that we started using that comes from the European influences is bouillon cube. And then we use a lot of salted fish to get also the umami flavor. So when I'm cooking egusi at home, you're definitely going to see salted fish, shrimp powder. Those are the two that you will see in there, and the locust beans to give that umami flavor. So spice blends, okay? So we use suya spice, which I have here. I brought something for you all to sniff. But this one, I have some for like all the different regions, but this one has, peanut. So if you're allergic to peanut, please do not touch this, okay? So I have two coming around. You guys feel free to open it and smell it, okay? This is not a boring presentation. You're going to experience it one way or the other. Okay, so we have the suya spice that's coming around. The base is peanut, because we use a lot of peanut too in the western part. And then we have cayenne pepper, onions, and all of that. We also have the pepper soup spice, which I told you about, the atare, the alligator peppers. And then we have the jollof rice seasoning. I forgot to bring a packet for you all to see, but it's right here. So you can also pass this around. People can look at it. And then we have the kanga kanga. That's just a dry rub that is used mainly in Mali and Guinea. Okay, East Africa. I came to know more about this region when I started trying to like educate people about East African food, just to see the similarities and the difference. So one thing I like about this region is that they're not really similar to us in that you don't see a lot of rice. I don't even think you see rice at all. You see more of bread, okay? And also they have very flavorful, flavorful stews and sauces, because they use a whole lot of different spices to create a beautiful spice blend, okay? So it features a balance of grains, legumes, spices, and stews often served with flatbread, porridge, or rice. And depending on where it is, like Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia would do more of the flatbread, whereas when you go to Kenya, Tanzania, or the Swahili countries is what they call it, you see more of the porridge, like someone mentioned ugali. We're gonna talk more about that. And yes, they have a lot of like the Arab and then Indian and also Persian like influences on their food, and that's where I see the similarities between their spices and the spices that they also use. So characteristics, you get a lot more of sour and fermented element, e.g. the injera. Have you all tried injera bread? Yeah, it's very sour, okay? So if you're not into that, like, you will not enjoy it, but it's very sour, but it's delicious, and it pairs really well with their like sauces and stews and stuff like that. It says stews and sauces made with spice, but not overly hot flavors. Well, I would say dependent, because their berry is sometimes can be very spicy, which is their spice blend. We'll talk more about that. The Indian and Arabic influences in the coastal region especially the Swahili cuisines, which is they use spices like cardamom, curry, pilau masala, which is here. Okay, this is what they use to cook their rice pilau. I'm gonna pass that around so you all can open it and smell it. So you see cardamom and green cardamom to be specific. You see a lot of black pepper. You see a lot of coriander and cumin in some of their spice blends and in some of their cooking. So for the Swahili cuisines, you see chapati, you see pilau, you see samosas, and some masalas as well. And then their specific food that they kept, I guess, they kept without the influences of the other cultures. So you see the sorghum, millet, teff. Teff is actually what they use to make injera, and cassava and other fermented preparation. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, so most of you, how many of you use that little butter thingy there with the bread? Yes, that is their own clarified butter. They call it interbe. I might be pronouncing it wrong. That's their own ghee. So what we did is we just melted some butters and added their different spice blends in there, like the cardamom, fenugreek, cinnamon. We put 10 things in there because that's how much that they use. And then that gives it that flavor. Alongside we're using the dry spices, you also add some fresh ginger, onions, and garlic in there to give it that flavor, okay? So that's what you all had with the bread in that room. And not only do they use it for food, in almost all their food, they also use it for their hair. Some of them use it for their skin as well. Imagine going around smelling like good food, right? Okay, these are some of their popular food. Injera with what? We know what injera bread is, fermented teff flat bread, and then you can use it to eat their lentils. You can use it to eat their different other foods like tips. My favorite is beef tips, where you cook it with their spice blend bear. Ugali, which is what we spoke about, is made with maize, and you turn it, you boil water, you add it to it, you turn it until it forms that dough-like consistency, and then you use it to eat sukuma wiki and other curry sauces like kukupaka. Matoke is green plantain that they cook kind of like a porridge, okay? So you cook the green plantain with curries and other spices, and it's delicious. And then yamachoma is basically grilled meat. They're into a lot of barbecue, and they use different seasoning to add, and then they grill it on open fire. So these are some of the food. That's rice pilau. That's the matoke. That's the what is it? I just said it. The grilled nyamachoma, and then sukuma wiki is what is next to the nyamachoma. And this is the injera with the different sauces and fresh veggies and meats that they pick up the bread and then they dip it in there and then they eat it. And then this is also the ugali right there. This is some curry sauce, and then that's the sukuma wiki. Sukuma wiki is, yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
400 years ago, I hate to mention that, but some of the blacks here were in slavery.
Yes.
Is this a part of that same tradition or not?
Yes.
You guys change up some stuff?
It depends on families and culture. For me, sometimes I tend to want to keep some of the cultural stuff, but once in a while, let me add a little bit of coconut oil or coconut milk or something like that. But for the most part, traditionally, we've been able to keep the what do you call it, cooking techniques, number one, and also we've been able to keep some of the ingredients and all of that. Well, being in the United States, sometimes it's hard to find the actual, what do you call it, local ingredients, unless you really, really search for it. But sometimes we swap. The spinach I use at home now is not taro leaves, unless I go to Jungle Gyms. So it depends. Thank you for that question. Yes?
Do you use cassava leaves for your...
Cassava leaves, we don't use cassava leaves, but other cultures do as well. Sierra Leone, they use cassava leaf, and I think also Liberia, but we don't. They do.
In Eastern Africa, they do. But I didn't know whether that was transferred over to Western Africa
Yes,
as well.
yes. And funny enough, even like what you just said, like some cassava leaf transferred to Western Africa, also bearberry. I came to find out that is one of our spices because it traveled from Ethiopia to Ghana. So, and I didn't know that until I came here. I saw a hand somewhere. Did somebody else raise? Okay. So we're going to move on. So these are some of the spices that you can see in East African cooking: ginger, garlic, turmeric, coriander, cumin, cardamom, clove, cinnamon, black pepper. They also didn't mention fenugreek. You see that in there. And then sometimes fennel. Okay. Oh, here, before I finish, this is bear. This is bear. I forgot to send this to you all. So this is like the main spice blend that is used in Ethiopia. Spice blends, we have pilau masala, which is the black spice that is going around. We have the bearberry, which I just handed to you all. Now this bearberry has like over 12 to 15 different spices in there. And then we have the Somalian one, I think is the Silwa spice blend as well. We don't have that here, okay, sorry. And then the spice clarified butter is the one that you all had with your bread today. And then the mitmita is also like a spice blend that they use for grilled meats in Ethiopia. So for the bearberry, make sure that you don't get it too close to your nose because it can be very spicy, okay? Yeah, it smells good. I love this one. Actually, that's one of my favorite spice blends. So now we're going to move on to South Africa. I'm checking time to make sure that I'm like trying to keep pace. So if you see me going fast, I'm just trying to keep the time so that we have time for questions, okay? So this is South Africa. These are some of the South African countries: Angola, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mozambique, and all of that. We're going to talk about their food. South African cuisine, South African cuisine is interesting. So I say it's interesting because some of it, you see, especially in South Africa, you see more of like a European background. And that's and when I first started studying South African food, I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound African. Like, where did it come from? Until I started doing history about it. So we'll talk more about that. South African cuisine reflects a rich interplay of tradition, resourcefulness, and global influence. While the food often appears simple, it's built around staples like maize, cassava, and beans. When we talk about maize, we'll see the similarities between South African cooking and also East African cooking because ugali is something that they have in common, but they don't call it ugali, they call it pap. Funny enough, in Nigeria and in Ghana, we make something, a porridge or a pudding called, we call it cocoa, and Nigerians call it pap. And we use fermented corn, whereas they call pap, which is non-fermented corn. They use it to make ugali, and they use it to eat something like chakalaka, which is what you all had today. We're going to talk more about that. It's layered with regional spices, spice blends, seasonal products, produce, and cross-cultural techniques from centuries of trade and migration. Okay, characteristics of South African cuisine is starchy, like similar to what we spoke about with the West African cuisine. So you see pap, ugali, fufu, all of that. You all are picking up some similarities, right, within the different regions. They have stews and relishes. Funny enough, we will call the chakalaka that you all had a stew, but some people call it a relish, and I'm still trying to process how that is a relish. But that's the chakalaka in the room with the beans, with the baked beans. Again, you respect what they call it, even though you might have your own like culinary idea of what it should be. So yeah, just like the Nigerian egusi soup instead of egusi stew. Yes, so relishes made with greens, tomatoes, or peanut sauces are common. Mid to moderate spicing. Their food don't tend to be as spicy, at least to me, compared to West African food, some West African foods. Is that what they said too? Yeah, like West African foods. Okay. So they do a lot of like open fire cooking, cast iron pots, and fermentation. Almost if you look at all the different regions, you see that fermentation is a big thing. Like the fermented locust beans, fermented corn from our Our side. Next time, where should we put the mic? Maybe not on my chest because I keep hitting it. Sorry about that, everyone. I guess because it's dear to my heart. I keep. I'm just joking. Also, colonial and migrant influences, like the British, and that's why I was so confused by specifically South African food, because I'm like, what is baked beans doing in an African cuisine? Yeah. So. They do a lot of baked beans. They even do a lot of like sausages and all of that. And then I realized that like the Afrikaans, some of them are like the European ancestors who lived there. So sometimes if you Google South African food, you're going to see more of like the British food instead of the indigenous food, okay? So for the indigenous food, you have to keep digging and diving to be able to see most of that, or actually maybe travel to the country to be able to experience that. So, yeah. Popular dishes, that's the stiff maize porridge. They call it stiff maize, but it's basically the ugali, which is kind of like the corn fufu. Okay, and pap and chakalaka. Usually you eat chakalaka with pap, but in our cooking class, you will eat it with plantain because it's my cooking class. And in Ghana, in Ghana and the West African countries, any bean dish you eat with a plantain or rice instead of like ugali and stuff like that. But like culturally, chakalaka is paired with pap. Yeah. Bunny chow is a hollow bread where they fill it in curry. Curry is also very, very popular. You see curry goat, curry chicken, all of that in the, what do you call it, in the South African countries. Also because they have a lot of Indian influences. So you see all of that. Yes, peri-peri chicken. Have anybody been to like is it like the eastern side, like Maryland, and you've had some Nando's? Yeah, did you like it? Literally, I traveled to Maryland just to eat that because they don't have it in Ohio. I don't know why. So peri-peri chicken. Speaking of that, so now I have this peri-peri spice blend coming around, also from, and then the bria, which we're going to also mention. So they use bria. Bria is basically barbecue. Or grilling. That's basically the meaning of bria in South African culture. And I will pass it to here so that we can start. Do you want me to open it for you? Okay, good. So peri-peri is actually from Mozambique, okay? So because they use a very popular and spicy pepper, it's called the peri-peri pepper. It's bird's eye chili pepper. It can be very spicy. But if you use less and more of paprika, it tones it down a little bit, okay? So that's how they make peri-peri chicken. They season it, and then they grill it on an open fire. So these are some of the food. That's the curry and the stiff maize. That's the peri-peri chicken. You can make it in a skewer, or you can just leave it bone in and then just season it. That is the... what do you call it? That's the stiff maize paired with some veggies. And then this is the bunny chow. I don't know how clear that is. It has like potato and curry inside the bread, and then like you pick the bread and then you scoop it in and then you enjoy it. Yeah. And then, hold on. And then the suwa, yes, that's the one towards the end. It's kind of like pulled pork a little bit if you look at it. So, yeah. I'm supposed to be using this, but I haven't been using it, sorry. Awesome. So spices that they use: ginger, garlic, turmeric, coriander, cumin, cardamom, very similar to the eastern region, cinnamon, and then the peri-peri bird eye chili pepper, as mentioned. I'm waiting for them to take pictures. Okay. Spice blends and paste. We have the Cape Malay curry powder. So curry powder is very popular because they make a lot of curry sauces. Peri-peri sauce, which is from Mozambique, like I mentioned. It has lemon. The ones coming around is basically dried vinegar, paprika, all the ingredients that you see to make the actual paste is like the dried version, what is coming around. You also have marinades with garlic, bay leaf, paprika, olive oil, and then groundnut sauce. Usually if you hear an African, and I'll say an African to generalize because we all tend to call it groundnut instead of peanut, okay? Cool. Let me make sure I passed out everything here. Okay, I have. Okay, good. So the next one that we're going to talk about, so we've done the West, the East, the South, and then the North, right? I'm just trying to keep track. So this is the northern countries. You see Algeria, Liberia, Egypt, Sudan, Tunisia, Morocco, and then the Western Sahara. So you see all of that. I think Morocco is the country that you can literally, it connects to like one European country. I'm trying to remember what it is. Spain, yes. I had to do this talk with children at a co-op, so I had to tell them about that. So North African cooking is also very different, where it has more of a Mediterranean flavor. Literally, you can get away with some Mediterranean food and call it like North African food, or specifically like Moroccan food, okay? But still try not to get away with it. Mediterranean and Arab and Berber tradition. Combines the richness of Mediterranean flavors with spices from the Arab world and indigenous Amazon technique, which is tagine and couscous, barley-based dishes, okay? So you can see that like there's influence, the East African and also North African are very similar because they have that Arab influences. So their spices are similar, and some of the ways that they also cook are similar. They use a lot of like dry fruits and nuts, and that comes from them, the Arabian influences as well, like apricot, raisins, almonds, and dates. I think this is the part where, as a West African, I kind of can't connect, because in West Africa, our savory is savory and our sweet is sweet. But like they found a way to like connect the savory and the sweet together. So sometimes is my taste buds when eating North African food is kind of like, what's going on here? Because like it's not used to, like, even when I came to the United States, sweet and spicy, I'm like, what's that? It's like you're either eating spicy or you're eating sweet. It doesn't like come together.
Sure it does.
Now I like it because my mouth has been trained to do that. I've been here for over 20 years, so at some point you get used to it. So North African food flavors are complex and aromatic, but not overly fiery like West African food. I guess we like a lot of fiery foods, right? Where your tongue is burning, but no, it doesn't have to be. You can always remove the pepper. Slow cooked tagine and stews. They use a lot. They eat also with flatbreads. Couscous is a big thing that they're known for. And it's just, couscous, just think about it like pasta that they just like broke down into like smaller pieces. It is delicious. It's one of my favorite things to eat. It's very simple to make. And you can even, sometimes I even eat it like a cereal. I add some milk and some sugar. It's really good. I try so many different things at home. Okay. So couscous, you can find that in like the Moroccan food, Algeria, Tunisia, and then tagine is Moroccan. Tagine is basically something that's slowly cooked in like a clay pot. And then like for me, I do the slow cook in like my oven. I put it like in a clay pot or maybe my cast iron, and then just put my chicken in there. With this season that I'm going to talk about, Ras Al Hannat is one of, it's called top shelf. I mean, like it's one of their best spice blend. This is like, you can put this close to your nose because it smells really good. Here. So couscous pairs really good with tagines. Tagines can be either vegetable based or vegetable and meat based. I like to make it like chicken with some, squash, with some zucchini, some eggplants, and the flavor with that Ras Al Hannat spice blend is amazing. Okay, so we have the koshara, which is a street food with lentils, rice, and macaroni. I saw this, I was like, there's a lot going on. It's kind of like our wache that has the rice and beans, the spaghetti, the shito. And I was like, wow, so it's kind of similar. Popular food in Tunisia. Did I skip something? Okay. This is part 2. I was like, oh, I thought I skipped something. So it's the burk. This is thin pastry filled with egg. I will show you when the picture comes. And then different other foods. Are you smelling it? Because I'm hearing some comments. Yeah, right? Like I can literally toss that on my skin. Okay, so this is the, that is the pastry that I think is the brick. the Tunisian food, and then that's the couscous. Very easy to make. Literally heat up some water, let it cool a little bit, toss in the couscous, and then you cover it in just a minute. It's done. You add some butter to it, and you're good to go. And then this is the let me go back. This is the koshara. Yeah, you see the pasta and the rice, and then it's kind of like what is that? It's kind of like lasagna. Kind of deconstructed lasagna, because I see a whole lot going on, but yeah. And then the last one is tagine. You see the clay pot that they cook in, the chicken, you see some carrots, you see, I think squash and all of that. And then next to it, like a little bit, a plate is couscous. Spices, again, is very similar to the east and the south. Cumin, coriander, literally the ras al hana that's coming around has almost like all of these in there. And like the ras al hana that you're smelling, we just delivered that. We just developed that in our kitchen, and we're going to start selling it soon. It took years because we wanted the right blend. So yeah, the noise makes sense, because when I smelled it, I'm like, we got it. So another thing is like caraway is something that I came to understand when we started doing a lot of Moroccan and North African cooking. It has like a mintish scent to it. And it goes in something called harissa, which I'm passing around as well. Here you go. So harissa, sometimes some people like to they also cook with a lot of mint. So sometimes you get that caraway flavor, and they also add mint. So the first time I had harissa, the dried one, I felt like it was too minty for me, and that's all I was tasting. So for our blend, this is our blend. You can pass this around as well. For our blend, we omit the mint and just keep the caraway, because for me personally, I feel like the caraway does the job of having that mint tone in there. Because sometimes when you're eating, it's not good to just experience just one flavor. I don't want to taste just cardamom. I don't want to taste just cumin. I want all the blends to work together so that one is not overpowering another. So for me personally, adding the mint, I'm getting more of like the mint taste in some of the harissas than some of the cumin and the coriander and the caraway and the paprika and the garlic that is also supposed to be like standing out, okay? Spice blend, ras al hana, that's what is going around, the harissa. So harissa actually comes in paste, but now people including our business, we're also developing the dry spices so that like people can be able to use it on like their meat and all of that. And then the baharat, that's the all-purpose blend, paprika, black pepper, clove, cinnamon, cumin. They use a lot of, you will see cloves, cinnamon, cumin, and coriander a lot in some of their food, and also nutmeg. Nutmeg is seen almost, that's one thing that they have with, I would say, Ghana. Okay, and then they have the dukkha, nutty spice mix of sesame, coriander, cumin, and crushed nuts. That's it. Any questions? I was trying to beat the time. Any questions? Thank you. Yes.
You didn't mention palm oil at all.
Yes, it was not part of my presentation, but the what do you call it? The agusi. Most of our stews and our soups are the base is not only the tomato puree, but the oil, the preferred oil is palm oil. Now, some people will be like, oh my gosh, palm oil is so bad for you. It's not bad for you. My ancestors have been, and me, we've been eating palm oil for several years, and that's not what is killing us, okay? The reason why palm oil is vilified is actually on that, it comes from the palm tree, and the palm tree actually gives us a lot of stuff in the western part of Africa. It gives us something called palm wine, which is our own wine. It's like sour. If you drink too much of it, you can get drunk, okay? And they climb all the way, like very high to like tap it from like the stem to get that. So that's how like indigenous kind of like wine drink. And we get the palm oil. The palm kernel is actually what is more of a health risk if you have too much of it. I like to compare palm oil to coconut oil. How many of you use coconut oil at home? Good. If you can use coconut oil at home, you can use palm oil. The reason why is that like any oil that solidifies in maybe a more cold temperature, right? Meaning that it has unsaturated fats. Now, unsaturated fats has double bonds. I also, my master was in biology before I quit, and I'm like, I'm going to be a chef. So my dad was not so happy about that, but because he expected a doctor. Anyways, so it has unsaturated bonds, and like when something has a double bond, it's not able to flow, right? It's very rigid. Whereas the palm oil is in room temperature is both liquid and also solid, meaning that it has less of the unsaturated bonds in there compared to coconut oil. So to be honest, palm oil is even better for you than coconut oil, okay? Because the reason why that is scary is because like your arteries, when you eat too much grease, right? Like the way I clogged my sink by pouring a lot of like grease down there, there's like, you shouldn't be doing that, the plumber said to me. I was like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So like it kind of get blocked in your arteries, and it like the blood that's supposed to flow through is not able to, okay? Because it solidifies and all of that. So that's why people say that palm oil is not good for you. But I think it's been vilified for too long, and usually during my talks, I like to thank you for bringing that up. I try to like let people to know the education. If you're using coconut oil, you can use palm oil, because palm oil is actually, I would say, better because it doesn't solidify all the way at room temperature, because it's half, it has about 75% saturated fats in there compared to coconut oil, which is 50% unsaturated, and then palm oil is 25% unsaturated. So that's just the bond that keeps it from flowing. Compared to vegetable oil, it's like liquid, right? That means like the bonds are like slow to move around. That's why it's liquid. Okay, I'm teaching the state of matter here. So yeah, so that's really it. But we use it in our sauces, our stew, our egg sauce, bean stew, all of that. And writing for the Food Network, sometimes I get scared. Well, people will be like, oh, I'm not making this recipe because it has palm oil. But when I signed on with Food Network, I told them that I'm going to keep my recipe as authentic as it should be, because of for my people's sake, and to just keep being honest with myself and not try to say, oh, you use vegetable oil or whatever. I suggest you can, but traditionally we use palm oil. So yeah, thank you for that. Any other questions? Yes.
So there was one region where it had a lot of, I'm not sure if it was the peanut or a different nut as a base or in a lot of the ingredients.
That's probably Western
Could you
Africa?
repeat the question?
Oh, it said there was a specific region that had more like of the peanut or groundnut ingredient as a base. So what is your question?
Well, I mean, we see so many like nut allergies here.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not a developmental issue in that region?
I don't think so. Actually, I didn't come to know about allergies until I came to America in terms of like food, and I don't know why that's the case. And I was even thinking one of my kids were going to have like peanut allergy or gluten and all of that, but we don't experience that, and I don't know what the issue is. And that's why like in different parts of Africa, we eat whatever, you know, including groundnut. Nut is a big part of our cooking. And I've never met, well, I don't know everybody in Africa, but I've never met, and I don't know everyone in Ghana, but I've never met someone, or even here, I've never met like a West African that says I have a nut allergy. So I don't know what, it could be an environmental thing.
I have a theory.
Yes.
When all the processed foods entered
It could be. It could be. Yeah, it could be, because you also bring a good point, because one thing I forgot to mention is that in Ghana, everything was from farm to table. We didn't have like food that has already been cooked for you and is in like the refrigerator and you have to go to a grocery store and buy it. And also, I didn't grow up with a refrigerator, so I didn't really eat stuff like snacks. all I did was like, all I had was breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they were all cooked from like, like from single ingredients. So that also could be an issue. I think the only thing that someone encountered with peanut butter, my mom brought peanut butter in Ghana, and my cousin ate it, and he just had a running stomach because he had too much of it, because he never seen like peanut butter in a jar before. But that's the only thing. But aside from being allergic, I've never known anyone who's from the, I guess, the African diaspora that has that. And the same thing with gluten, because you have a gluten allergy, it would be very kind of difficult in certain countries where, unless they use, I don't know, no. It would be difficult for you to live in certain countries because they do a lot of bread. Whereas in you can be gluten free and live in like the western part, because we do a lot of rice and potatoes and yams and stuff like that. Yes.
Just talking about the peanut butter, I'm looking at a lot of people in the room with age, many of us remember peanut butter where they would separate the oil from
Yes.
that whatever, and that you go buy Jif or whatever it is in the grocery store.
And
these
it
days.
still doesn't separate.
Yeah, processed.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
And so one of those things is that talking about your family member,
Yes.
eating our processed peanut butter.
Yes.
Don't do that.
I actually eat the peanut butter that separates.
Yep.
All it has to say is peanut and maybe salt. Don't even buy the one with like honey or sugar. I just buy, because when I make the peanut soup, like we have to have a specific peanut butter that's close to home. Like in Ghana, we roast it, then we blend it, then we cook with it. So again, like that's why it's a long cooking process, because we start from literally scratch, okay? But now in America, like I'm not about to like roast it and grind it. I go and buy like the natural one, the one that says natural, where you see the oil still like sitting on top. And again, it's just peanut butter and salt, or just peanut butter by itself. Hi, you have a question? Okay, what's your question? Oh, it gets made in several ways, okay? We blend it. We blend the ingredients, right? We put it aside. Then we cook it in some oil, specifically palm oil. We cook it for some time. Then we add some seasoning to it. We add some locust beans to give that umami flavor, and salted fish, and something called, Nigerians call it crayfish, but it's actually grounded shrimp. So if you're an American and you meet a Nigerian, they said, oh, add crayfish to it. Don't actually go and buy crayfish, okay? They mean grounded shrimp. Again, you respect what they call it, but you know that that's not what it's called. And then we let it all cook together, and then we eat it with some rice. Question in the back?
After you all eat and everything, you all have like celebrations, and like, what's like some of y'all traditions, like, when y'all eating all together?
Yeah, so I actually, oh, so she's talking about like celebrations where we all eat together, right?
Yeah, I know like some parts of Africa, they get together and they eat, and then they have little jumping around.
Yeah, she said jumping around. We jump around a lot in Africa. So we do stuff like birthdays and weddings and just different graduations. What do you call it? Just think graduations. Even in Ghana, funerals are a big deal. We celebrate funeral like it's a wedding, okay? Because we pay respect for the dead even more than the living. So they do a lot of like different cooking. We come together and eat. And speaking of like eating as a community, I actually grew up eating from the same pot with like 5 cousins and my sister. So it's like you wash your hand, and then you have a big bowl, and then everybody's eating from the same thing. Okay, now if I want to do that with my sister, she's like, ew, But like that's what we grew up doing. There was no like separate bowls. There's not that. There's a lot of stealing people's meat though. Like my sister did that. It's like she would eat her meat and then like hide your meat under her hand and just put it in your, because we also eat with our hands. We barely ate with our like a fork or a spoon or whatever, because that's our culture. Everything. You will even see us eating rice with our hand. I don't do that here as often because, like I have kids, so yeah, and like I have to wash my hand, run after him and all of that. It's easier to use a spoon. Hi, yes.
I saw some folks eating fufu, and they don't chew the fufu?
Yes.
Is that typical, or is that something?
Yes. So actually, I edited that from. I didn't know that I removed it from my my slide. So fufu is actually known as swallow. So if you meet a Nigerian, they say, "Hey, do you eat swallow?" They're asking you, "Do you eat fufu or our version of ugali?" Okay. So you don't chew it. So what you do is like you get it and then you dip it inside the soup or the stew and you swallow it. I still swallow, but my kids chew it and it's okay. It's just like the people who are from the culture, they think that you're doing it wrongly by chewing it, but like sometimes people put a big chunk in their mouth and like not everybody can swallow such a big thing. So I tell people like either you can chew it, you know, I used to chew it and then my grandma would be like, when I was in Ghana, it's like, you don't chew it, just swallow it. So now I'm used to swallowing it. But I feel like if you chew it and someone that is not of the culture, you experience more of the flavor with the soup than just to swallow it. Yeah. I don't know, for some reason we still experience the flavor, but I don't, it's funny because I'm not thinking that I'm swallowing it. I just do it. Meanwhile, my kids chew it. My youngest son was like, I have to chew it because I don't want to choke. You know, and we started laughing. I was like, good point, just chew it, whatever. As long as you can get inside your stomach. But yeah, culturally, we're not supposed to chew it. We're just supposed to like swallow it. So the slimier foods help you to swallow it easier, like okra or ogbono. We do a lot of okra soup is also on that. A lot of okra, I have to have okra soup every other week or I'm not okay because I grew up with it and stuff like that. So yeah, yes.
How do you prepare fufu
Oh.
in the US? 'Cause
Oh.
I know the pounding, right?
Yes. So in the US, there's the powder version, which is not the same. Like you just like turn it, just like you do ugali, you turn it in a pot of boiling water, and then you get it. But again, it doesn't taste the same because it's been processed. But I found a way using a food processor. You cook the cassava and the plantain or the pounded yam. I made it for my father-in-law. I was so excited. So I cooked it until it was soft. I added a little bit of the water and then I pressed my food processor. You know how doughs are made? And then it turned into like the fufu. And I was like, oh my God, it tastes exactly like back home pounding it. Because the food processor is like pounding it for you. So that's how we make it now. Yeah. Yes?
Are you eating these foods for breakfast also, as they're different?
Yes. Well, it depends. They discourage you eating anything like fufu for breakfast because it's very heavy, and if you go to school, it will put you to sleep. So my grandmother would be like, no, if you eat that, you're going to sleep off in school. So we do eat, our breakfast is the wache, which is the rice and beans thing. Rice and beans, what do you call it? Food. What did you say?
Like a bean cake.
That is called the moi moi. That one you eat as a side with rice. But there is something called a bean fritter, which they call akara and kose. Akara in Nigeria, kose in my language, which is like, it's the same thing as the moi moi, but instead of steaming it, you fry it. So you eat it during breakfast with something called cocoa, which is the pap. So, and you add sugar, so you have your protein, and the carb is actually the fermented corn pudding that you eat it with. So that's one of our breakfasts. Another breakfast is like tea and bread, because we also were colonized by the British. So we do a lot of teas, specifically like chocolate, like teas in the morning. Bread, we do coffee, we do the wache stuff. We do something called puff puff, which I think you had it here at the opening event. Yeah, that's a breakfast item, but now we turn into dessert by adding some ice cream and chocolate sauce. But like, it's like our own donut. Yeah, it's our own donut, and we eat it with pap. We eat it with like custard. What else? And we eat it with, yeah, mostly pap and then tea. So we have different, we do a lot of breads and a lot of like the bofur and then the akara and stuff like that for breakfast. But like the fufu stuff is mostly either lunch or dinner, because it's so heavy, it will like put you to sleep if you are sitting in an office or going to school.
It's not a lot of fruit.
fruit is actually our dessert, which is what I forgot to mention. So usually during our cooking class, it's like, oh, what are we having for dessert? Well, we made the puff puff like the dessert. But usually in Ghana and in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, I went to the Ethiopian store and I'm asking them, I'm teaching an Ethiopian class, what do you all eat for dessert? He's like, I'm like, you eat fruit, right? I was like, we do too. He was like, yes. So, and I don't know about the other African countries, but I know at least Ethiopia and like western part of Africa, we don't have anything called dessert. It's fruit. After you finish eating dinner or lunch, what you eat is basically an orange or a mango or pineapple or even like coconut, you know, so that's what you eat. Dessert is what like you get when you get an A on your exam or it's your birthday. You don't eat it after every meal. So every meal, our dessert is actually fruit. Question?
So if we wanted to try your food at Finley Kitchen, how do we find you?
So if you wanted to try my food in Finley Kitchen, I'm saying the questions so they can sync. Because my brain is like, ooh, you know. We do catering, and then we're starting meal prep because a lot of people have been asking about it. So we're going to start it back up again. Or you can come to our cooking class where I teach you how to make jollof rice, fried rice, and all of that stuff. So we've done a lot of cooking classes with different businesses because they also want to learn about culture and bring culture to their teams and all of that. So you can find it on our website, afromeals.com. And you can, if you like the spice blends and stuff like that, they're also on our website. Yeah. Thank you.